Hi, everyone. So excited to be here today, especially with my special guest, Charles Caldwell, who is calling in on from Vietnam today, or maybe evening his time. Jason Gerardo, who's an old favorite, comes here every other Thursday now. And our new honored guest, Audrey Grubesic.
Very good, Don.
Oh,
Man, you're on it.
very lucky.
Beautiful.
Very lucky. Uh, so I'm glad I got it on one try. Uh,
You did great.
appreciate it. So with that, our word of the day is collaborate. Uh, from Audrey, who believes in collaboration, and I don't know if Charles can. Can you hear us, Charles? Great. What we'll do is we'll start with Jason. Jason, why don't you share a little bit of an update, where you've been, what you're doing, what you're looking forward to, and maybe your first stab at Collaborate.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm in California, so it's good morning. It's 8 o'clock. And good to meet you, Audrey, and see you,
Yeah.
Charles. Collaboration, something very important to me, and the word behind that for me is community. Very important to me, and talking about a little bit of an update. I'm working with several groups. I work with a group called Stop Stigma Sacramento as a speaker, collaborating with them to get the word out on around mental health, to get rid of stigma that's on mental health so people can get the help they need. I also work with a group called YOLO Cares. It's a hospice and end of life group. They also have a thing called the Center for Loss and Hope, and it works with people, helping them with grief, dealing with pre-grief, before they lose their loved ones, and then after they lose their loved ones, and a lot of great programs. And that's a collaboration. I bring what I bring to the table, and they have this wonderful organization. And then, of course, collaborations like this. I think about, not getting too ahead of myself, but like Don built this platform for us. He built this community. He's worked at it for years, to get this going, and now it's just a blessing to be able to join in these conversations. Collaborate is, and I wrote down the definition. The intent. It's interesting because I didn't write the whole definition down because it kind of fell apart as I was reading it. But and I'll mention what I'm talking about. So, intentional co-creation between two or more people. And then the definition goes on talking about aligned values and with the same purpose and stuff. And we know that doesn't always happen. So, the saying that I love, that my mentor told me, is that you either have synergy or conflict. And that's with everything in life. And I think collaboration is about having that synergy and being more than the parts of the two or more people. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, you left it at a very good place, and always appreciate and feel honored to have Jason on the show. Been doing this for over, I don't know, more than a year, I'm sure. And this is 900 shows. I'll go to Audrey while Charles is working on his uh, technical elements. And Audrey was responsible for the word. For all you people out there, why don't you share a little bit about your background for all of us, Audrey, and what your first take on collaboration is?
Thank you. I appreciate that. My whole journey in the last 8 years has really led to offsite construction. So it's kind of the new buzzword, but it's been around for 100 years. Offsite construction is anything that's built in a manufacturing plant. I have a media company called Offsite Dirt. So I have a group of collaborators and contributors. We have about 18 of them that tell their stories, that are experts in their field, everything from lean manufacturing to high performance build. Also volumetric panelization, everything that we're starting to see to be utilized as a method of construction. I also have a company called Dynamic Modular Solutions. We create projects and title projects. We provide pipeline to manufacturers of steel frame, wood frame, panelization, factories that are looking for new projects and project availabilities. And then lastly, I'm also a partner in Merlin AI, which is a construction software ERP system. Everything from the very beginning of the project all the way through the project scope, estimated budgeting, project management, procurement, and then finishing it through the accounting service of that. So the reason why I pick collaboration is because I feel like there is a big shift that is happening in all industries, right? We are starting to see that if we don't start collaborating, working as partners towards a common goal, then things start breaking apart. And we also know that we can't be the only one leading the way. That's why I love what you do, Don. I think you've been so magical in this industry because you've really shown that not only through collaboration and connections, you've also created these amazing relationships. And you're so authentic in doing so that people are attracted to you. And I feel like this is the shift. I feel like either you're going to be on your own island, doing your own thing and hoping to catch up with the rest of us, or you're going to start using skill sets and abilities to realize that others need to share in the opportunities so that you can all be successful. That's why I chose collaboration. And I'm super proud and honored to be here with you. I've been following you. I love your newsletter and the tips and the creation of content that you give to others so freely. And I think for that, you are the collaborator.
Well, I couldn't imagine a better beginning for Audrey. So very articulate, but more important, so relevant. Because one thing we do relate to and leverage is artificial intelligence. And, when we're talking about collaboration, we're not just talking about collaborating among people, but collaborating among systems and platforms and opportunities, and collectively in the construction vein, building together and building strong and something that will last for a very long time. So thank you so much, Audrey. I'm honored and feel privileged to have you today. I believe you must know me for a lot longer than I think to know as much as you do about me, or believe enough in me. So with that, we've got a friend from probably the Middle East. Welcome, great to see you. Anybody out in the audience feels like asking a question or has a comment, feel free. We depend on you to guide us and make us more relevant and valuable with this show. Charles, no. And well, you can continue to type. Charles is just an avid contributor. Even when he's on the show, it's like having two guests. What he says and then what he types, and he's got the most wonderful sayings that you can imagine. And I'll share that Charles is one of my favorite best friends on LinkedIn. He lives in Hong Kong, is now in Vietnam for a little bit of a trip, and he's been going all around the Pan Asia, I guess, lately, and just retired from really being one of the key players in the largest English-speaking school system in Hong Kong, and just feel so wonderful about having Charles as a LinkedIn collaborator. So I'll await Charles's typing, and with that, I'll move it over to Jason.
And, so one of the things I do, my background's in neurolinguistics, hypnosis, timeline therapy, so on. I see people for their mental health with my company called One Path. But one of the things in hypnosis that we do, this reminds me of, is called utilization. And so when you're putting someone in trance, whatever comes up in the room, you use it, you utilize it. So if you're putting someone in trance and you hear an alarm go off, a bell beeping, and you're like, oh man, you could be upset and be like, oh, it's going to take him out of trance. Or you utilize it, you use it, and you say, in a moment, you're going to hear another bell and it's going to help you go deeper into trance, and it builds that consciousness. And the reason I mention that is because this situation with Charles, it's a perfect example of collaboration. His mic's not working right now, but he's still part of the group. He's still contributing, So let's not keep trying, obviously we want him to get his mic fixed. We really want to hear from Charles today to join the group. So I'm not saying in that sense, but in the sense that if we just sat here and waited for him to get his mic fixed, okay, turn it off, turn it on, read it, this, the project that we're doing together wouldn't move forward. So we have the opportunity to say, okay, so he has other strengths. So we're going to use him, not use him, but utilize him for other strengths. And he can type in, he can do quotes, he can add into the conversation. And I think that's the key about collaboration, is that it's not a cookie cutter. It's not everyone brings X to the table. Everyone brings their own individual contribution to the table, and that's the beauty of collaboration. And that's how we can grow together, is by adding these parts that we might not have ourselves, and have that, once again, that synergy.
Yeah, and I also believe part of that is empathy with others, because, Charles has been very kind when my videos haven't worked too well, or when I get cut off and someone just picks up the slack for someone else. And, everybody's helping each other help each other. I want to correct myself. Charles did not retire. He's transitioning. And
Yes, I love
I,
it.
I want to make sure people are aware of that, and also is looking to build his consulting practice. And, I couldn't be more excited for him, and couldn't recommend Charles any more than words will allow me to. With that, we'll swing it over to Audrey and keep building.
You're bringing up many important parts, Jason, in our little private chat. I think there's a couple of things that really have to work and involve collaboration. And we've mentioned several of them, but we haven't named them. Problem solving, communication, cooperation, mutual respect, a shared purpose. We're starting to see this in so many different facets, at least even in my own life. I love that there's so many crossovers here, Jason, because not only am I in construction, these overlapping things that are happening in construction, but I'm also on this inward journey and purpose for myself. Where am I finding collaboration within? And so it brings this whole other focus to, like even Charles was saying, or Don was saying for Charles, transitioning into this other place. I feel that's the kind of the things that we do in our life. And if we're lucky enough to start realizing our own self-awareness, our own consciousness, how do we lead to these next levels? These also attract other people in those same areas. I think that's really what's been happening for me over the last 12 months. I'm literally running 5 businesses right now. And I look at it and I think, oh my gosh, how is this even possible? And I think it's possible because of the people that I'm working with. It's the partners, it's the mutual respect, it's the collaboration of others that bring these amazing things to the table in order for us to move forward. So I think that's one other note on this great word that is the word of the day.
Well, thank you for that, Audrey. It looks like we have an echo. I don't know who.
Could that be me? Can you hear me now?
We got the voice. I think Charles did that on purpose to build anticipation.
That must have been it, Don.
So, Charles, it's your platform.
Well, thank you very much for your patience, and I appreciate the comments continuing to be inclusive despite the technology breakdown. And I think that as Jason says, it's really testament to the fact that we do collaborate in this type of environment, and that collaboration brings strengths and different perspectives to everybody. And I think that's one thing that will come out loud and clear in today's session.
Well, that's great. So we're in Vietnam.
Yes, we're in Vietnam, and we actually, what's interesting is that there's a typhoon bearing down on Hong Kong right now, and we came to Vietnam at not quite a week ago, and had a couple of days of beautiful weather, and then the rain started. Turns out that the typhoon that's on its way to Hong Kong is actually on top of us now. So tomorrow we fly back to Hong Kong, and then we'll be able to go through the typhoon a second time as it finally reaches Hong Kong. But it's been a great week, yeah. And we're in Hoi An, Vietnam, which is absolutely a beautiful part of Vietnam, despite the rain.
Well, that's great. Well, you're always very positive, and you always make the most of whatever you're involved in. Jason?
Thank you.
So many good points. And yes, the inner journey, and that, how do we make the group stronger? We make ourselves stronger. That's what do we bring to the table, right? And we don't look at others. Now we do look at others to support us where we're not doing so great. That's the beauty of collaboration. And it's not a but, it's an and we continue to get stronger ourselves. and we make ourselves an even better part of the group, because that's where the strength is. That's where that synergy comes in. You don't have, I see a lot of people. I didn't go to college. I went right in the Marine Corps after I graduated high school. A lot of people talk about, like in high school we did projects too, but I know in college, if you do projects together, group projects, where one person does all the work and the other people in the group get the credit, so to speak, that's not good. That's conflict. That's not synergy. That's not a good collaboration. And there's that opportunity in everyone to hold everyone else accountable. Accountability is, I think, is the key word too when you talk about collaboration. And who is that? And it's like, well, who's in charge? No one has to be in charge. We have to just take care of each other both ways. We have to take care of each other by contributing, and we take care of each other when we call somebody and say, hey, where's this part of the project at? Where's that part of the project at? Collaboration, it has to be complete. It has to be a full loop, so to speak, a circle. If you have an opening in that circle, it's not no longer a circle, and it's just one or two people doing the work. So I think it's very key. Like here, we all have our points that we make, and we add into it, and we stay on. We kind of feed into each other on there. That's the beauty of collaboration, is that we grow together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe the key word is or the key element of collaboration is is really a level of equality and mutual respect and partnering, right? Where everybody gets behind whatever it is and tries to make things better by coming up with better ways of thinking, better ways of doing, but more importantly, better ways of collaborating together where people get excited. And I think with excitement, you get a lot more innovation and creativity, especially when you have freedom and safety. So when you can make it a safe environment and people are attracted to contributing versus kind of measuring one's words and making sure who's in the room and blah, blah, blah. Audrey.
You are everything in my head's just standing up right now, because all these words that you're using is everything like that I'm studying right now. I'm reading a ton of books, and many of them are really about self-awareness and my self-awareness. We talk about, life's a journey. I used to think it was so much different in my 20s than being in my 50s. In my 20s, it was all about how I was going to conquer the world and what I was going to take and what was I going to give and how was I going to do this and that. And I'm going to be the best at the job. And it didn't matter what anybody else. And now in my 50s, I'm like, how can I help? How can I be someone that can raise up someone else? I do consulting work as well, and I work with many CEOs that are females in construction. And as you can imagine, this is a really male dominating area. So to be a female, for example, this past weekend, I was at a conference called Advancing Prefab. It was for panelization and facades. Out of 100 men, I was the only female in the room. The only female. And if you have never experienced that, it's very hard to let you know how that feels. But I've done it so many times now, and I'm confident in myself. I'm okay if people don't like me. I'm okay if people do like me. That's always a plus. But I don't thrive on that anymore. And I've learned that over the years and through the wisdom and this inner guidance of where I'm going. And you brought up good points about safety and feeling safe and feeling seen and feeling heard. And when I think about collaboration, I think about those things and those partners that I want to bring into my inner circle. I didn't before. Before, it was all about how many sales are we going to get, or what number do we have to hit, or all those things that we are pressed upon by society and by these large companies, right? They're the companies that I've worked for have a huge board of directors. They have people that they have to report to. There's numbers that have to be hit. If they would have said to me, hey, maybe if we all work together instead of being separate, and maybe if we're more collaborative in our nature of building a team that actually values and respects and picks up the other person when they're down, gosh, I only could think about how much better everything could have been. And I say that today because that's the way I live my life and the people that I work with now. And I see it over and over again. And most of the people that I work with, kind of like everybody on this team, they're all contributors. They're all collaborators trying to do something with a higher purpose. There's so much more out there if we all work together and know that there's no scarcity in this. It's only abundance and opportunity once you create that mindset and that awareness in order to evolve to that.
Well, obviously you've evolved, and have evolved to a level where it has a positive impact on what you're doing, but just as importantly, who you're doing it with, right? What makes you tick makes people like you tick. And the more you can encourage them and share, and some people are just, they're afraid of sharing for whatever reason. They do come from scarcity, and their thing is someone's got to lose if someone wins, or I'm going to be better because I'm going to be faster, stronger, get there earlier, and that just doesn't scale, and it doesn't lend itself to continued cooperation and collaboration. So so well put, Charles.
I think I want to add on to this conversation. I love the discussion thus far. I want to add on to it the importance of modeling collaboration, because right now, if you look at what's happening around the planet, and you see this everywhere, even though the headlines at the moment might be the situation in the United States, you're seeing a real resurgence of individualism in cultures around the world. You're seeing a higher incidence of polarization, people who are digging their heels in and getting entrenched. And so it's really, really important that, as you've all said thus far, that we don't lose sight of that ability to collaborate, to be willing to surrender a position that we might have, and talk to other people, help me understand why you see things a certain way or why you think there might be a better way of doing things. And there's a lot of really good examples of where huge companies, huge organizations, which people might think would be bureaucratic, have collaborated a lot. So, for example, Lego and NASA collaborated on educational kits for children in STEM learning, and that created a whole new generation, or has created and is creating a whole new generation of engineers and scientists. The collaboration between Starbucks and Barnes and Noble several years ago created inviting spaces within bookstores for people to combine coffee and literature. And things like that. And collaboration between MIT and IBM Watson has led to a lot of innovative solutions, particularly in medical diagnostics and the application of AI in healthcare and things like that. So I think that I think sometimes people think that collaboration means that you need to be small. You don't need to be small. You just need to think smaller and be agile. Even Microsoft and LinkedIn, after Microsoft acquired LinkedIn, the integration of LinkedIn's professional network, that community, with Microsoft's productivity tools, has allowed a lot of the innovations that have taken place in LinkedIn in the last 5 to 8 years. So you don't necessarily have to be small. You just have to think small and think agile.
Yeah, and I think to that point, sharing is so important in this process. And people are used to getting direction or giving direction as opposed to sharing intention and creating opportunities for someone to build and grow from that area. And I think that's really how so much reserve capabilities are unleashed, because people feel like it's a welcoming place and they don't have to concern themselves with judgment, right? If you avoid judging others or showing judgment, you'll also expand one's capabilities and opportunities. And, people like to give what they get. So what comes around goes around. Or if nothing else, you help somebody. And that's a plus. You don't have to figure, okay, if I do this, what am I going to get? Because that's short-sighted and it's too transactional. And most really elevated people are beyond that now, right? They're not going to just trade time for money and do whatever it takes or whatever people want from them. And you can do more. And Audrey's a prime example of not just putting your stake in one ground, but the ability to really leverage yourself, especially with systems. And there are synergies between things you do. So sometimes you do some here and it can apply there at a greater level of efficiency. Charles has Lego and NASA. This collaborative produces, okay, inspiring the next generation of engineers and scientists. Well put. Jason.
This last bit of conversation reminded me of a saying. One of the things I'm training too is a Hawaiian art called huna. It's basic for the shamanic ways of that area. But there's a quote that my mentor passed on from his mentor, and it says, "Think not that all knowledge exists in your school." And that's what happens. We think, well, we know the way, and it's got to be this way, and we're going to do it our way. And you see where that's going. And, to Charles' point, that collaboration between other companies, they didn't just say, these companies that he gave examples of didn't just go, well, we're going to stay in our lane and do what we do. It's like, how can we expand that? And those collaborations made much more than they could have believed. Once again, synergy. It's kind of, I think for me, it's that backup word. Community and synergy are the two words I think are behind collaboration for me. And they grow exponentially, and that's what actually took Lego from going out of business almost. They were close, and you could, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know they were struggling, and then they started making those kits, and they started collaborating in different directions, and they grew, and now they're doing okay now. They've got adult collectors out there, going to Targets and other stores in the mornings trying to find these kits wherever they are. But about collaboration, it's so true. And something else I want to talk about that Audrey had brought up, and actually Charles touched on too, is, in my world, we talk about internal or external validation. How do you know you did a good job? And we all have it. They're called meta programs in my world, in my NLP jargonistic terms. We call them meta programs. And it's like, how do you know you do a good job? And some people are internal with an external check. Some people are external or fully external, maybe with a little bit of internal check, meaning that I know I do a good job, and I know I do a good job, and you can't tell me differently because I'm pretty confident in that. Now, I will go outside and check, because whoever the project manager is, whoever I'm collaborating with in one way or another, I collaborate with my clients, right? And if they're not getting the response, if I'm not seeing the response in them that I need, then I miss something. So that's an external check, and I go from there. Now with clients, it's a little more external, of course, because it's their journey. But I tell people, I've had the biggest, meanest, baddest mofos on the planet in my face yelling at me in the Marine Corps. So you can't tell me anything. You can't. That doesn't change me. I'm going to go with what's inside and what's right. Now, if I do something wrong, I'm hard on myself. Then I'm like, oh my goodness, that was a challenge, and you could have done better, and whatever. Kind of off subject, but that's that internal against external validation. And I think what happens in collaboration is you have to balance that out. Because if I go into a collaboration, as I said, with my clients, and I'm very internal, but I'm working with a group or at least another person, I have to shift that, because I have to make sure that the other partners in this collaboration are happy as well and are doing good. So I have to make that internal shift, which, Audrey talked about, is strengthening the insides out there. And at the same time, if someone's very external, where they're always looking on the outside, I have a good friend of mine that's going through some stuff right now, and she's very external. She reads the whole outside world to see how she's doing, instead of being able to know that inside how she's doing. And if you're that way in a collaboration, you're not going to take any steps forward yourself. You're going to keep looking for the group to say, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? What do you guys? And that's not a positive, fair, and balanced collaboration. So then you have to shift. So these group settings have to make you change how you see the world inside to fit better into this puzzle.
Well put. I really appreciate that, Jason. Audrey?
My gosh, Jason, you and I just need to get on a call together. I could just sit with you for hours. You are so speaking my language in so many ways. And again, I think it comes from, like you were saying, that reflection inward. We don't even actually give ourselves time to sit and think anymore, right? We're constantly on our phones. We're constantly getting in calls. There's weeks where I'll have 40 Zoom calls. That is insane. I don't even know how I do it. And when I'm done doing it for that week, I'm completely exhausted. And so there's so many different things where I think about collaboration, but now I also think about expectation, and expectation for myself, expectation for the group. How are we collaborating? What is the communication style? There's so many more things than just getting people together. And if you really think about it, collaboration exists on every construction project. You have to have collaboration. You have so many moving parts, so many people that are involved in projects, from the very beginning of planning to the purchasing the land, getting the financing, that's just the beginning. Then you got to build your team, you got to figure out your projects. For us, we're building in factories, right? So there's a whole nother team, a whole nother group of collaborators in order to design, build the project. Then you got to bring it to site. Then you've got to also have another team that has to work. Well, collaboration is such a big word because there's so many people involved. There's so many different nuances to this. And I love, Charles, the examples that you give on companies that are at one time they wouldn't collaborate each other, right? They were all competitors. Oh my gosh, there's no way we are going to do it. A vertical that I've been studying over the last 6 months has been in data centers. And what I'm finding in data centers is really, truly extraordinary to me because there are all of these companies now with AI, with, you have banking, you have schools, all of that data has to go somewhere. Now you're bringing in AI. So again, you have all these different verticals that are now needing to store the information into data and data centers, and all these billions of dollars are going into it. And I sit there and I think, what is going on and where are we going with all of this? And then I think, oh my gosh, there's no way that you can build a data center by yourself. You need all these other experts. You need all these other people. You need all these other purposes in order to drive this mission. So again, it just comes back down to that understanding of team, but then there's that bigger part that Jason's talking about, and it's you as the human, as the person that's a part of that team. And you need to look at yourself and how you're going to collaborate. What are you going to contribute? How are you going to set up the expectation? What is your role? And what does that mean? What does that role mean with everybody else's role? And is everybody really clear about communicating that and understanding that? And it's funny, Jason, that you were talking about looking for that external source. We have been conditioned as humans to look outside of ourselves, right? Even when I grew up, as Catholic, and it was like, we talked about, I thought God was outside of me forever. Like, I thought he was this person that would bring stuff to me. Little did I know it was me having God inside of me and knowing what that meant. And I'm not trying to get off on a religious tangent. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's so purposeful for us to know ourselves and to know where we can do things, how we can, heal the things that are going on inside of us, and know that it starts with us, as hard as that is. Everybody has trauma in their life. Everybody has experiences in their lives. And until that is understood and healed and explained, then you can go out in the world and be a collaborator, and you can actually create more by doing less, because it's just the energy of being able to have these conversations just like we're doing today. We're bringing thought and thought leadership into the world. That's what we're doing. This is our time to do it. We can now change the conversations into a collaborative effort, because now is our time to understand that it starts with us. It starts with the beginning of who we are and how we are going to evolve as a better human the next day.
I couldn't have, that's so incredibly valuable. I hope people in the audience are taking notes. And it's so freeing. And people need to free themselves from themselves. The hardest thing is getting out of your own way. Most people, they just can't do it effectively. They do little bits. And the other thing is really having the best of intentions and really having balance. And the key to not make anything too big about anything, because it affects everything. And I think ultimately, when you can send a message that you're okay, I'm okay, we're okay, that's a wonderful beginning. Charles?
Yeah, I want to add to this that we humans really are wired for collaboration. And it may not seem like that initially when we think about it, but when you back yourselves up to the sort of the how community how humans have sort of evolved in groups over time, we've always been part of communities. We have lots and lots of communities. So one of the ways you can look at collaboration is that collaboration is a form of community. And whether that community is, for example, between Microsoft and LinkedIn, or Starbucks and Barnes and Noble, or MIT and IBM, or within the construction industry that you're working in, Audrey, there's communities, and you can. I think it's good to encourage people to understand that they're not alone, and I they should be in community. And if they're not in community, then they need to reach out to people and identify, who are their people that they can be in community with. I think a lot of people, with all the stress that's going on in today's world, have a bit of a, they're kind of in this alone mentality, and they're not. We're definitely wired for community. And the other thing about humans is that long before, reading and writing was invented, the way ideas got transferred was actually through community and through storytelling. And there's a huge amount of power through storytelling, which effectively is what we're talking about now. We haven't shared a lot of examples, but we are, in a way, we're storytelling on this session today. And that's all a form of collaboration. And we know through my involvement in the learning and development industry, through coaching, through personal development work, we know that when people share ideas, other people see themselves in those ideas. And so, yeah, it's all about really community and collaboration.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nose. And one of the true benefits of collaboration is again not being the person in it. Not having to be at the head of the table, but being part of the table. And also, just like this show, it's always been positive. No one's out here selling anything or promoting themselves. What they're trying to do is learn and share what they're learning with others, and then in turn, learn more about what they were sharing from the feedback. And I think collaboration is key for feedback. There's so much knowledge out there and so much value in individuals, but you got to meet people where they're at, and build from that, as opposed to once you get here, I'll do something with you, or once this happens. Well, that may never happen, or it may not happen fast enough. And you want the whole individual. You don't want a part of them. And a lot of it's their personality. They say it's always your music, not your words that people hear. So how excited you are, how enthusiastic you are, how polite you are. These are intangibles that have gone by the wayside in lieu of getting there no matter what it takes, and doing that kind of process. And one last thing is there's so many new opportunities. If people had challenges in the old opportunities, I was reading where prompt engineering is one of the hottest fields. And that's all about how do you talk to ChatGPT? What questions you don't need to worry about the answers. You need to focus on the questions, because the answers will come fast and furious. And once you can get to tying right into AI, you're there. And once you're there, it's hard to leave there. It's like a fax machine. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I said, who did the first person who ever bought a fax machine fax to? Right? Because they were the first ones and only ones with a fax machine. But anyways, Jason.
I see we're talking about collaboration. I see we have a friend Omar here joining us.
Oh, yeah. Let me
he's in California.
Oh, yeah. And Omar was talking about coming out to Colorado and maybe getting lunch. Omar's did quite a travel circuit, went to so many different countries and interviewed people. I've been on his show. He's got a couple shows, and he's a tutor, as well as he has a show called Zoom Party. Zoom Party. I was on it. My grandson was on it, and he's been on my show. I know other people. He invites everybody. So welcome, Omar. Actually, he's putting together the LinkedIn singing contest, which I've been designated a judge, because I don't know how to sing, but I guess I know how to listen to people sing. And that's coming up. And he's got 3 other judges, and he's looking for 20 contestants. I know Leslie Flowers is one. Right before the show, Harvey Tuck reached out and said, would you like to do a show with me? And Leslie Flowers, who I did about 50 shows with, and she's just an amazing person who does Think and Grow Rich on Fridays every week, and then does a audio stream on Mondays. Charles comes back with Alone, We Can Do So Little, Together We Can Do So Much. Helen Keller, wonderful quote. I forgot where I left off. Jason.
So I love this conversation, and I tend to geek out on stuff like this that I'm very passionate about. So I'm trying to restrain. I have all these notes here, and I'm like, no, that's not relevant. That's not relevant, because collaboration is just that, right? You stay relevant within what you're trying to achieve as a group. Um, but one thing I do want to mention, and because I'm very passionate about it, and thank you, Charles, for the prompt, so to speak, talking about being wired for connection. You know, there's something that I'm training called polyvagal theory, and it's about our autonomic nervous system and how it interacts with the world. And I have, excuse me one second, I'll keep talking, but I have to let my cat out because she's going to freak out. So the reality is that our nervous system is wired for connection. It's something that it allows us to come together and to survive. We're always looking for signals of either safety or danger. And how do you stay safe? You know, our nervous system, our oldest part of our nervous system is 5 million years old. Our newest part is 2 million years old. And that newest part is that socialization. It's that part. So in the vagus nerve, it's the nerves from the chest up, and it controls. And that's what's called the ventral vagal for the techno geeks like myself. But what it does is it controls your smile and your head tilt and your head nod and what's called vocal bursts, where we say, uh-huh, yeah, uh-huh. These are all ways that we let others know that we are safe, that we are community, that we are connected. And you could do it through video, like you all just felt it right now through this video. It works really well in person too. Not to go too technical and all that. The reason I mention that is because, you know, to Charles' point, we're wired for connection. And it's when we break that connection that you feel that heartache. You know, if you've ever been in a conversation with somebody and for some reason they pick up their phone to look at their phone or check their messages, you physically feel that. You feel that disconnection. And then they have to then build that connection back. And that's what we've done. You know, that's a very physical movement, but that's what we've done as a society is we keep breaking that connection. We keep saying, oh, I'm an individual. Oh, mine, me. And we stop saying us. And that's the beauty about those that understand collaborating, community, growing together, being of service. All these things we talk about that are you could tell I'm very passionate about, because that's how we're going to grow. That's how we're going to get to where we want to go. You know, I tell people, you know, are you working on your passion, or are you collecting distractions? And in this world, being an individual is collecting distractions, things that take you out of the group, take you away from those that love you, away from those that you could grow collaborations with. And it's very important that we re-engage, that we really become as a group, because that is where our safety is. And in safety, you can be creative and you can grow.
So well put. And Jason brought up a saying when he first came to us about 1.5 years ago or so, is by yourself you can go fast, but with others you can go far. And I think that's so important. The other element as you get older, possibly, or more mature, is you enjoy living vicariously through others. You know, you're so happy for somebody when they got their first break, or if you watch a kid have his first ice cream. You would never want to take that ice cream away or that experience, you know, because you know how special it is. And maybe you had something to do with it, which makes you special to yourself as well as to that person. So it's multi-dimensional. It's not just do this, get this, or don't do this and don't get that. Charles says, I can do things you cannot. You can do things I cannot. Together we can do great things. Mother Teresa, great saying. And individually we are one drop, but together we are an ocean.
Love it.
So beautiful, so early in the morning, but not for Charles. Charles, what is it night out there?
It is 10:45.
Oh, okay, a little bit earlier than.
So 1 hour earlier than normal.
Yeah. I got to give Charles credit, you know, to be as bright and shiny at 11 o'clock at night. That's something. Audrey?
Yeah, Charles is definitely masterful. Love the comment about story and storytelling. I think that is so underrated. And there are, you know, we look at social media in the younger generation. So I have a 22-year-old, and I have a 27-year-old. And the generation of what they look at and what they value is so different. Anything that's connected to their phone, right? Anything that they can get information from, and it's constant information. There's constant stories out there, there's constant things that are happening. And we lose that part of collaborating with others when we're so internal about what is going on here. um, Bringing back and coming back to the story, everybody has a story. And isn't it so wonderful that the experiences that Charles and Don and Jason are all so different, and they've learned something? And if you are wise enough, if you can be quiet enough to listen, it's amazing what you can learn. You can collaborate in different ways, and it doesn't have to be these gigantic, big momentum things that are happening in your life. You can do small little bits that can make you. My business partner always says, I'm going to be 1% better every day. So in 360 days, I am going to be 360% better than I was the year before, right? It's all about these little nuances to lead a happy life. You've brought this up so many times. I feel like when we come down to the basic need of humans, it's all about love, it's about security, and it's about freedom. Every single person wants this, however you're going to gain it. And then I look to all the people that are here today talking about this one word and coming to the table and sharing their experiences and how they view it. And that in itself is such a beautiful thing, because I feel like we're running so fast. And I am a perfect example of it. I am doing so many things. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing half the time because I'm doing so many things, right? But these are the moments. Today is a moment for me to listen to the three of your perspective and to get something out of it that we commonly are all in agreement about these common values. And I'm starting to see it more and more and more people that I meet. I had a very beautiful luncheon with three gentlemen yesterday. And you know what they said? Audrey, it doesn't take much to be kind and helpful. And I feel like the world has left that behind. And when you start offering that, and I feel like that's what this collaborative group is doing here today, we're just offering our own experiences, our own opinions about what we have seen and what we're doing. But we also want to welcome in others to maybe think just a little bit different today than tomorrow. And you never know what can happen.
Yeah, especially when you trust yourself. And that's what's so, I think, attractive about this show, is that there is no script. There is nothing anybody has to prepare for. And you're better off not preparing because you're not in the moment. And most of what we talk about is leading off from where someone else left it, right? It was someone else's thought that became our thought that we adopted and want to build on it. So it's almost like Legos. At a start, and then someone adds a piece or jigsaw puzzle or whatever. So, Charles.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to listening in a minute, but I want to jump back to a piece of neuroscience to add on to what Jason talked about. And this is something that we probably have all experienced because, well, right now people might be following the Stanley Cup playoffs. Audrey, one thing you might not know about me is I'm Canadian. So
And my husband
three
is
against
too.
one
He
here.
loves it.
Yeah. So, and in Hong Kong we have the rugby sevens, and we watch soccer. You know, I'm sure lots of us watch soccer, football, and things like that. So, to add on to what does that have to do with neuroscience? Well, humans are actually wired for empathy and wired for compassion. And this is becoming a well-known fact in the neuroscientific world through mirror neurons. And when we can actually observe mirror neurons is if you watch the last game, which I didn't watch, but I read about it, and it got quite emotional. I think the Oilers got a bit emotional when they realized they were going to lose that particular game. Got a little bit sparky there during that game. Now, if anybody took some hard hits in that game, when you see that and you feel your own physical reaction to that, or you watch somebody get tackled in football, American football for example, or they get tackled in rugby, and you hear a collective ooh from the crowd, and you might even feel your knees coming up if you get someone get tackled quite hard, or if you watch a boxing match and someone gets hit quite hard and knocked out. That reaction that we have are the mirror neurons in our brain firing off. And they've done a lot of studies around close communication. And when people are really, really on the same wavelength, they literally put an fMRI scanner on people's brains, and during conversation, they can see how people are on the same wavelengths when they really are collaborating, for example, and really synchronizing with one another. So I wanted just to add that onto the stuff that you had said, Jason, about the vagus nerve. But the other thing, coming back, Audrey, to listening, I want to add on another way of listening, and that is around feedback. Right now, feedback is a big thing. Lots of people are advocating feedback, give feedback, give feedback, give feedback. Well, one of the things that happens when we give feedback to people is that, as Jason says, our brains are wired to see feedback like that as a threat. And this was a big breakthrough that social science, neuroscience had about 15, 20 years ago. They realized that the same part of the brain that reacts to physical threat reacts to social threat, and that includes feedback, performance management, conversations, and things like that. So what the best practice companies and the best practice leaders are doing right now is they're actually asking for feedback, and they're going into that listening mode, Audrey, that you're talking about. And they don't necessarily label it as listening. They actually label it as perspective taking, which is the ability to understand and appreciate another person's viewpoint, particularly in relation to yourself. So you can go to someone and say, hey, how do you feel about that presentation I did? How do you feel about my project's ideas? I'm interested in your viewpoint, your feelings, your experiences about that. And that cognitive skill, as you build that muscle over time, enhances empathy and communication, and allows individuals to become better leaders, better, stronger, and builds that collaboration muscle as well, and helps us to navigate social situations and resolve conflicts more effectively.
Yeah, I mean, we could almost end it right there, Charles.
Please don't, please don't.
No, I won't. But I think that really is demonstrating what we're doing in real time without any planning, is allowing us to open up feelings, thoughts, experiences, and ideas that have been waiting to flourish and blossom, but haven't had the fertile ground. Because usually if someone says, what's this or that, it's yes or no, or this or that. But when you dig a little deeper, why do you feel that way? The what is easy to understand. The why is always the challenge. Something happened. Well, it's obvious it happened. Why did it happen? Why did you say that? And I think asking a question sometimes gives you power, because some people are used to taking whatever's given. Okay, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Versus, I'm a little confused. I could use a little bit more information here. And that person may find, hey, I'm doing this more and more without thinking, is this being received properly? Am I being received properly? Because you're still a person, and you can have disagreements, but you can still share mutual respect. You can still say, I appreciate it, but we're going to go this way. And my policy when I had my companies was whatever is best goes next. It didn't matter there was no pride of authorship. And the beauty of that was, hey, if this idea doesn't work, your idea will come next, right? So hope we can make it happen. If not, we're going to continue to build on it. And I think people just want a fair shot. They want an equal playing ground. They want to know that they're being treated as equally as anybody else. And that will promote it, because the leader is the one who sets the stage. Right? And if you say this is a priority in our organization, this is an important way we treat people, people will pick up on that. So there's all kinds of opportunities. Jason?
So much good stuff. And I got some points as we're getting around the hour here. Just a couple of things. First of all, yes, Charles, I having worked in HR in my life and worked with folks and been a leader for a lot of years, that comes down to feedback is criticism. That's unfortunately kind of where we're at. And, you have to, it takes a good leader to be able to understand that that's how people see it and they feel attacked. And so you have to approach it from a very compassionate and empathetic way. The other thing is talking about mirror neurons. In my world, the metaphysical world, the esoteric world, even hypnosis world, we've been saying for a very long time that your unconscious mind takes everything personally. And now science and neuroscience has proven through mirror neurons that that's true. We see things happen and we take it personally. And so that's for another conversation, but I just want to mention that. And the last thing I want to leave with is that all life is collaboration. Driving in traffic is collaboration. When you see a traffic jam, that means people didn't collaborate. That means people were individuals and try to do what they wanted to do. Walking down the sidewalk, if you're in a very busy, like a downtown San Francisco, let's say, area, that's collaboration. Who's going to go? Who's going to move? Who's going to get out of the way? You have to feel that and feel that energy, and you're working with other people, whether you believe it or not or understand it or not. There is that collaboration there. And that this is something I wanted to share, but it's opening a big can for another hour, which we're not going to do, of course. But leadership is collaboration. If you're a manager, you're directive, you're getting tasks done. But a leader realizes that it's a collaboration. You're getting things done, but it's a group. How can we accomplish this? And that's what a true leader does. And so as you look, if you're in that role, in that position, realize that it's a collaboration. Realize that's the first step to being a great leader.
I think that's unbelievably valuable and insightful. Audrey?
Here's one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And if that doesn't show you in just a beautiful quote about collaboration, I don't know what does, because there's always going to be interaction. There's always going to be the ways that you can communicate and talk and work together. But to really know and value that person across the table, or even the three that are here today, it really is about, how are you feeling? How do they make you feel is what you're going to remember. So if you're going to be in a room of others and you're going to be collaborating on a project, just always remember, words are powerful, but feelings are even more powerful.
Yeah, that is a beautiful quote, and I think it's so valuable. So appreciate that, Audrey. Charles, we got a couple minutes left.
Yeah, I love that. Very powerful. In the chair from which is about emotion. We are, one of the ways to look at collaboration is that we're from different groups. And a lot of groups ultimately come together and have in ocean and meet in ocean. I guess people to look at collaboration. We're all going eventually emerging. We're in an ocean. I've wrapped.
That's pretty good, Charles. I didn't hear it all, but I think that's what we're trying to do, is share our intention. In companies, a little bit of an echo. They did studies, and the number one benefit that employees look for is recognition, and a pat on the back. That saying, criticize in private, compliment in public is so important. It's how people want to be seen and feel when they're seen. And that's encouraging. And that will lend itself to further collaboration because they noticed, I did a wonderful job and was glad someone shared it with everybody, right? Because you don't want to keep patting yourself on the back, but it's really nice when it's legitimate, sincere, and authentic, that someone points something out about somebody and gave them not only recognition, but value. And something they then take home and share with their family. I just got an award. I just got a bonus. I just got this. And the award and bonus will fade. But to Audrey's point, the feeling that you receive is they really like me here. They really see value in me. And then you start to see more value in yourself because it's confirming and validating. And then you start to learn, hey, if it worked for me, it's going to probably work for my group. So good leaders teach people how to be leaders by how they lead. So we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody here for being here, but more importantly for what they contributed here to everybody else. And we all got bigger, better, and stronger together and had a great time doing it. So it shows that collaboration doesn't have to be hard work. It doesn't have to be stressing out. It could be actually very freeing. And the best collaboration is just go with the flow. Let's follow the trend and also build on it. Because a lot of ideas you've heard today maybe will resonate later on, but they're there. Everybody to that point, Audrey's point about being a better person every day, if you have incremental learning and progress, it's amazing how it leverages itself and scales. Little things done right over time compound. And it's that compounding effect that really takes you to higher levels. So with that said, I want to thank the audience. Thank Audrey for her wonderful first appearance here and her word of collaboration. Jason and Charles, I can't thank you enough for your commitment and your ability to bring more and more value to all of us. And with that said, I'll say goodbye until next week. Catherine Chadwick will be back with us. And if you don't know Catherine, she's just a wonderful individual, has done some amazing things. And by the way, Sarah Dawkins is taking some time to be with her dad in England, who's 95, and helping him out. So if you ever wonder where she is, she'll be back. So could talk and talk and talk, and that's why we'll have another show. Well, thank you all so much. And have a great day, and share any thoughts and ideas on the show today with any of us.